In economics, there is a well-known concept or a theory known as the concept of scarcity, which simply says that human beings have unrestricted desires, or we opt sometimes to achieve so many things in life. However, there's not enough resources for us to actually steer ourselves towards the attainment of these goals. But if you're to take a critical look at people that are successful, there's one thing that they always do in order to increase their chances of becoming successful when they set goals. And one of the key things that they do, especially when it comes to riches, is that they consistently subject themselves to education. It comes in the form mainly of having to read books. And so in today's video, we are going to dissect the 5 personal finance books that can help you to set better goals and show the right discipline, and more importantly, the motivation to hit your goals. And so if you're new here, my name is Nana. I hold a master's degree in business finance, and on this channel, we discuss everything personal finance and personal development. With this said, we come to the first book of the day, and that is The Richest Man in Babylon, written by George S. Clason. So that is a book that has actually lasted several decades. However, the timeless principles that were applied in ancient Babylon are still active, and they are still relevant in today's world, in that we still have so many people living paycheck to paycheck, which subsequently prompted the king of Babylon to summon the richest man in Babylon, who happened to be Akkad, and he was asked or tasked to actually help the men of Babylon to build wealth. And that included him having to lecture the men of Babylon and then guiding them as to what they have to do insofar as managing their money is concerned. And one of the key things that he said is that 1/10 of everything that you earn is yours to keep. And so you have to pay yourself first. More often than not in life, what happens is that when we earn, the first thing that comes into our mind is the bills. And that actually ensures that we are making other people rich as opposed to us making ourselves rich. So what you have to do when you earn is to try and then convince your mind that 1/10 or 1/10 of everything that you earn is yours to keep, in accordance with the timeless principle that was practiced in ancient Babylon, which is still relevant in today's world. The second timeless advice from the richest man in Babylon is that saving alone will not necessarily make you rich. And so you have to find ways and means of making your money work for you. And that is true even in today's world. If you're to consider all the returns or the interest that we earn by saving with traditional banks, it goes on to tell you that at the end of the year, we are better off actually investing as opposed to saving. If you're to save your way towards wealth, you may never see the realization of every single goal that you set for yourself. And so the best thing that you need to do is to try as much as possible to make your money work for you. And that comes in the form of you having to invest in assets that will subsequently bring in some form of income and then increase your chances of becoming financially free at the end of the day. This brings us to the second personal finance book, and that is The Millionaire Next Door, written by Thomas Stanley and William Danko. So the book actually set out to identify one thing, and that is the habits that actually set the top 1% apart from the bottom 99%. And it was established that if you truly want to become successful financially, there's one thing that you need to do, and that is to avoid lifestyle creep, in that you have to expend below what you earn. So the best advice that comes from the book is that frugality is one of the reasons why people are able to realize a multi-millionaire status, and then other people are not, and they constantly struggle by living paycheck to paycheck. If you constantly set out to expend outside your budget, or you spend more than you earn, then that becomes one of the recipes for financial disaster. As opposed to this, what the book actually prescribes is that you live below your means, avoid unnecessary purchases, live a frugal life, and then save and invest what is left at the end of the month. This brings us to the second advice from the book, and that is you need to focus on building wealth as opposed to displaying it. So most people go on to focus on one thing, and that is displaying wealth, that is purchasing things that might not necessarily deliver any value to them, or things that come at the expense of their future financial goals. So what you need to do instead is to focus on purchasing assets, which increases your chances simply of earning more in the future, and then driving you a step closer towards the attainment of your financial goals. This brings us to the third personal finance book, and that is The Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel. So Morgan goes on to say one thing, that no man is foolish when it comes to expenses or how they use their money. And that was one thing that actually got me to change my perception of people and how they spend money, in that people have experiences in the past that actually influences their actions and their inactions when it comes to money. So anytime that you see people and they are expending or they are going towards a particular direction when it comes to how they manage their money, one thing that you need to know is that no one is foolish, in that they might have several experiences in the past that is subsequently influencing those decisions that they make. This brings us to the second advice from the book, and that is discipline beats intelligence. And this is how Warren Buffett puts it. He says that we are not better off or we are not richer simply because we are intelligent or we are financially educated. It is simply because we've realized the discipline over the years, in that he knows when to sell a stock and how to avoid, more importantly, getting to make decisions based on the fluctuations in the stock market. So the discipline of having to buy stock and then holding on to that stock for a very long time, irrespective of whatever is happening in the stock market, is what subsequently made Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger so rich. And that is one thing that you need to know. When it comes to building wealth, discipline is far more important than intelligence, simply because several decisions that you make financially can actually be influenced by one thing, and that is discipline, as opposed to intelligence. You don't need the highest form of qualification, education-wise, before you'd be able to become successful in life. As opposed to this, you need to find the right motivation, and more importantly, the discipline to make the right choices, but also to stay patient and consistent enough to see the realization of several results stemming from those minor inputs that you put in initially. This brings us to the fourth personal finance book, and that is $100 Million Offers, written by Alex Hormozi. So one of the key things that the book actually establishes is the fact that you need to focus on value or delivering value to people, and in exchange for that, people would give you money. So anytime that you set out to become wealthy, there's one thing that you need to know. Identify any painful problem or any issues in society, and then carve a product or a service around that problem or that issue, and that is subsequently what will steer you towards the attainment of several financial goals. According to Alex Hormozi, there's one thing that you need to consider through all these things. The tempests may come, the challenges may come, the trials, the tribulations, and everything may come. Sometimes even in as little as having to start a side hustle, you may face all these things. But try as much as possible and then consistently deliver the value. And he believes that if you're able to do this consistently for a very long time, you're actually going to see the success or the realization of every single goal that you set for yourself, especially if it includes having to build a company or starting a side hustle. This brings us to the second advice from the book, and that is to master the all-important skill of sales and marketing. So Alex goes on to highlight that if you truly want to become successful as a business owner or a potential business owner, there's one thing that you need to master, and that is to come up with services or goods that are considered so valuable that clients or customers will feel stupid saying no to. And that also comes with several years of practice and consistency. But more importantly, try and understand the problem that your clients actually face, and then find ways and means, of course with interaction, to come up with a solution to that problem, and that will subsequently ensure that you become successful in whatever endeavor that you set your mind on to achieve in life. This brings us to the last personal finance book, and that is The Diary of a CEO, written by Stephen Bartlett. So Stephen Bartlett goes on to advise that if you truly want to become successful in life or financially, there's one thing that you need to do, and that is to have confidence in yourself. This is how Napoleon Hill puts it, and I love it so much. He says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can also go on to achieve. So Stephen goes on to highlight that you need to believe against all odds that you're capable or you have what it takes to become successful in life. And that is the starting point of all greatness. You don't have to doubt yourself. In the face of all the turmoil, the stress, the difficulties that come your way, you need to consistently convince yourself and to prioritize that goal. And then as a result of that, you see nothing but success. This brings us to the last advice from the book, and that is, as opposed to chasing money, try and find ways and means of attracting money. So Stephen believes that if you're able to actually add value to yourself, then you actually become magnetic, in that you would attract money as opposed to having to chase money all throughout your life. So most people do that and they end up anxious, and then more importantly, they do not see the realization of their goals. If you truly want to become successful in life, try and consistently do one thing for a very long time, and that, he believes, is what will lead you subsequently towards the realization of every goal that you have in life. And so these are the 5 books that you really need to actually read in order to steer yourself subsequently towards the attainment of your financial goals. And this, I believe, would help you and then position you or broaden your scope or your knowledge on finances altogether. And so thank you for spending time with us. If you found value with this video, kindly smash the like button and then consider following. Thank you.